Curb Angels is a graphic novel that me and my friend Christopher Ducharme came together to write and draw. I'm the artist, he's the writer. It's a book about these four girls that come from these four different countries. They come together under the guise of getting paid for a job. It turns out to be rescuing women who were sex trafficked. I love drawing characters. That's like the thing that I like to do. So these four characters I've had for many years. And one of the main characters, her name is Waffles. I'm pretty sure I've had her since I was like 6 or 7 years old. She was a stuffed cat. So I've had these characters kind of in my head and they just sort of existed for a very long time, but they never really had a story. So it wasn't really until I met Chris at Comic-Con. He likes to tell stories, and he's also an artist, and I would kind of go over to his house if we would just like draw and talk about stories and everything. And I was like, hey, you know what, I have these characters, I would love to turn it into a story, but I myself kind of struggle telling stories because I'm more of a visual artist and less of a writer. So I asked him, do you want to write the story? And he's like, yeah, I do. And kind of since then, we've sort of thrown ideas back and forth. These characters are very personal to me, so having somebody else write about them, there were points where I was like, yeah, that's exactly like how I envisioned this character. Other times where it was like, oh, I never thought that, you know, they would do that, or that's a good idea. And some things too where I was just like, no, that's not gonna work, like I disagree. So I think because it was like these characters were so personal to me, it was sort of a struggle like kind of letting them go and giving reins to somebody else to write them. There's just some humility I had to have with that. But it was good because it took us to places where I just never really thought they would go, and it made the story better. My mom said that like I was born with a pencil in my hand. She said by the age of 2, I was so focused on drawing. And my siblings were too, like we all kind of drew comics together, and like that's a typical thing. Kids are usually interested in coloring and drawing up to a certain point, and then they're like find other interests. But I just kind of stuck with it. I was totally content being like 5 years old and sitting at a table drawing for like a couple of hours. And my dad would come in and be like, oh, do you want to go play outside? And I'm like, I'm good. And I would just sit there drawing. He's like, okay. So I was always interested in cartoons and drawing and comics, and that was kind of just something that really spoke to me. I realized I wanted to do art professionally in high school. So I think it was just sort of always in me that I'm like, I think I want to go to art school. I graduated in 2011, so it was definitely, I'm like, okay, now how do I take this degree and like put it to good use? And so I thought graphic design was the thing that I wanted to do. But I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I found it kind of boring. I just sort of started volunteering at some places. Volunteered at the Winnipeg Art Gallery and volunteering at Martha Street Studio. And I think that was really what kind of got my foot in the door, was volunteering. And because I was consistent and I'd show up for my shifts and I had a can-do attitude, they're like, hey, you know, there's an opening if you want to apply to, you know, do tours or, you know, teach an art class. And it's sort of just organically happened. It's just for the pure joy of it, the love of making something and seeing it existing and getting something out of your head and putting it on paper. I think like I just get like a a deep sense of joy being able to do that, to get it out into the world for people to see. I like to be able to have conversations with people about artwork and just like finding community and just being able to share and just getting stuff out. That's like a big cathartic thing. I find that maybe that's when I'm working the best, is being by myself. A lot of artists are very solitary, they're very inward. They do a lot of thinking. And if you think a lot, you can either go down a destructive path and do something unhealthy or something that hurts you or hurts somebody else, or you can go down a creative, life-giving path. So you start to put that energy, whether it's negative energy or positive energy, into something that you make, whether it's a pot or a painting or a piece of poetry. You know, you're kind of navigating life, and life is really hard. And, you know, what do you do with that energy that you have? And what do you do with those thoughts in your head? Do you do something bad or do something good? And, you know, choose creation over destruction. If you're a young artist and you want to kind of get into the field, I would say, you know, you do have to find realistic ways to make money. And sometimes that means having a side job and not thinking that that's selling out or that you're not actually like putting into your career. It's okay to have something that has nothing to do with your art to make an income. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in not being asked to do certain jobs or being rejected. Like, it's okay to be rejected a lot, because that's a big part of the job too. People aren't always gonna like what you have to offer, and you have to get over that. You gotta leave your ego at the door.